This video is brought to you by a new motivation and a new bookshelf organization system. The new motivation is a bit of an exaggeration. I'm just, feeling like doing things, but we're here for the drama, as you all know. Lies, you've never seen me be dramatic. I don't know what I'm talking about. If you think the lighting is shitty, that's because it is. It's overhead and a desk lamp, and I'm going slightly blind, right? Like, can you tell the difference? Yeah. That's where we're at right now. Okay, just jumping right in because I've got nothing else to say. I am reviewing and / talking about a book called Tell Me How You Really Feel by Aminah Safi. The book isn't out yet. It's coming out, I think, either March or April. And I got the ARC from the publisher. I didn't expect to get it, but I did, and that weekend was like the happiest weekend I've had thus far in 2019. I sat that night when I got the book. I literally finished it like that night and then into the next day. It's one of the softest books I've read. Needless to say, you can already tell what starred review I'm giving. 5 out of 5. This is before I even give you the summary. Okay, let's actually get into what I'm supposed to talk about. So Tell Me How You Really Feel is a queer, enemies to friends to lovers, young adult contemporary book. The author describes it as a Gilmore Girls retelling. Bear with me. Where if Rory and Paris were not heterosexual as fuck, and obviously not, white. So our Rory in this book is Sana Khan. She is a cheerleader. She's a straight-A student. She is Iranian Indian and Muslim. She is the daughter of a single mom who is made her way up in the film industry as a set designer. And she's also the granddaughter to some rich-ass Iranian folks. Very similar to what Rory is like. And our Paris of this book is Rachel Recht. She is Jewish-Mexican. She comes from another single-family household, this time a single dad. And she's on a scholarship at this private school for being an amazing film student and an aspiring director and screenwriter and an aspiring NYU student. That's the premise. The book kind of starts out where these two girls are at odds with each other because they'd had a weird first encounter with a lot of misunderstandings, leading to them both, kind of butting heads and having the wrong idea about the other. Rachel has an issue with her film project to where she's obligated to take Sana on as the lead, and as they spend more time together, what do you expect with an enemies to friends to lovers story? It ends up well. Trigger warnings before I get into anything. Homophobic and racist microaggressions, but super low-key. There's emetophobia, a couple of vomiting things, symptoms of depression, estranged parents, bodily injuries, fractures, and there's a car accident, a lot of mention of alcohol abuse, and then there's also sexism and misogyny. This is a lighthearted, young adult, queer contemporary. So the triggers that I just mentioned are present, but they're not difficult and forerunning contenders in how this narrative moves forward. It's very much a character-driven story, and it's very much like a relationship-dependent story, as you would expect a romance book to be. Just so I have a segue, let's just talk a little bit about this Gilmore Girls aspect. Although I've watched a lot of Gilmore Girls, I had a major issue with the storyline. Rich white girls, it really ain't a story. But taking that basis of, coming from wealth and then transferring that onto the story of immigrant Iranians changes the tone of this living up to your family legacy and coming into that family wealth big time. Sana's Iranian grandparents have worked hard to set up their existence in America as contributing immigrants to American society, and Sana's a third generation immigrant. So although that being new to this country isn't so much a part of her identity, carrying that weight of a family's legacy to uphold herself to the status that her grandparents have built up their family, to stay at the forefront, to prove that she's worthy of the legacy that they have brought, is a very first generation, second generation, children of immigrants story. That weight of the responsibility is so much of what her character is, and it really, really changes what this Rory's, trust fund baby story is. It makes it so much more poignant. It gives it a lot of meaning in the mom's choice to not take her parents' wills, to set up her own identity, and also a single mom, a single brown mom who got pregnant before she got married and is still making it and not shunned completely by her family. Is the meaning of that context changes so much. And I'm not dogging on single white moms, but like, you gotta understand how important hearing this story as a brown person is to me and to other young brown and Iranian women. Like, it's big. Also, like, Paris being bitchy, I didn't really understand why she was such an asshole. Maybe I just don't remember why she was such an asshole, but like, Rachel's mean and like no nonsense attitude comes from a place of someone who's been looked down upon for not being rich enough as her peers and being there on a scholarship. Therefore, she has to consistently prove that she deserves to be there, or she loses the money that she receives to be at this prestigious school. So like, that no nonsense, like, don't fuck with me attitude, don't play with me, I know I'm new here, I don't belong here, but damn well I deserve to be here, comes through her don't take shit from anybody attitude. Again, changes the meaning of why Rachel is the way she is. I love having meaning behind somewhat faulty characteristics. No shade to Gilmore Girls, but I just think this is a way better version of the story. Having POC really does something to a narrative. Like, it really does. Queer people of color change the meaning of so many standard tropes. So many standard tropes, and I will stand by that statement. Maybe I'll make a bigger video on that, but like, this is one of those examples where making things gay or making things POC really, really changes stereotypical standard tropey narratives. Onto my feelings about this book. I read this till like 3 a.m. and then went to bed, got up, and started reading immediately, so you can tell exactly how addicting it was. Like, the emotional character arc is just so beautiful. I was squealing the entire time. These two girls call each other out on the other person's misconceptions, preconceived notions, biases constantly, and there's no pushback on like, oh no, I didn't mean. It's always, oh damn, yeah, I didn't think of it that way, I'm gonna change the way I see things. There's this tussle of coming from different walks of life, and then learning to contend with those opposites and growing from that. No one's an asshole here. They start out as assholes, but they realized that they were assholes because they didn't know the truth behind things, and like, then they choose not to be assholes because they've learned. Like, it's so good. It's so fucking good. Both our leading ladies are lesbians, and although I'm a little bit more for like even queer diversity within queer representation, really, who am I to go around and saying don't write two lesbians, you know? This is one book in a plethora of books that are coming out for queer women, so I'm not going to fight back on this. Like, seeing two lesbian stories from different perspectives, not really discussing their coming out story, their fight with their family, like, those are all things of the past. We've got accepting families, we've got loving families, we've just got two lesbians just being gay. Like, I love a story where identity isn't the whole point of the book. I love reading books where struggling with identity is the main part of the story, but I also need books that aren't heavy and bogged down with struggle, with pain, you know? And although Sana really does kind of have to deal with people putting on this like preppy girl identity onto her and expecting her to be heterosexual because she's a cheerleader, like, it's still so not the main point of the book. That queerness, her gayness being ignored, is more of a part of her public persona, considered a blanket and flat identity for her. That's like one of her struggles, and it's worked out so beautifully in the way Rachel discovers Sana's public persona versus home persona. That back and forth that they have throughout the story has such an organic and realistic story arc, and it works the same way with Rachel. Like, Sana thinks she's this scary, intimidating girl who doesn't like interacting with people, but as they start to spend more time with each other, Rachel's family struggles, Rachel's need to build up defensive walls really explains her external persona versus internal persona, and like these duality of personalities. It's not like fake identities. It's very much like, here are the walls I put up, and here's how the two sides of the way I exist in the world make me a whole person. That kind of stuff really gets to me. A couple of things I will say. There weren't a lot of characters. Sana and Rachel are like the two main characters. Sana's mom, although featured frequently, is kind of like a stock parent character. Same with Sana's dad. Sana's got a best friend, Diesel. That's his nickname. He's set up as a really fascinating character, but he only makes 2, maybe 3 appearances in the whole story, and it's not enough to make me really care for the guy, but it's enough to make me want a full character who's got a lot more involvement in the story. It's still like a standalone, so I guess prioritizing the 2 main characters' story arcs and then the family relationships took a forefront to Diesel getting a full arc. And although I could argue that, you know, the book could have been longer, it's still a 5-star book in my eyes. One background character doesn't really hurt the integrity of this book. One of my favorite things is that the chapter titles are actual chapter titles as opposed to like chapter 1, chapter 2. These have got like funky little modified Shakespeare quotes or modified song lyrics or modified like idioms and things like that to fit the tone of that chapter. Reading those and then getting into the chapter kind of gave it like this, here's the message, here's what you need to take from this chapter onto the next. I think focused the way I was reading this book a lot more. Chapters really added to the flow of the book, and that's rare. You'd expect chapter titles to come from like Rick Riordan and like J.K. Rowling in middle grade books where, you know, they're funny, they're maybe hinting at what's going on, but these chapter titles kind of sum of the emotional tone or like the here's what's going to move forward tone of the book. I really loved that aspect. It wonderfully blended the story. Like, it's not a choppy narrative, but somehow chapter titles also blended themselves into the story. They helped the story along and therefore became part of the story. That's so great, and I think that's kind of like a signature of Aminah Safi's books. Headstrong girls trying to make it in the world, trying to overcome the way other people see them, to make their own marks, to make their own identities, and to just be fearlessly youthful, fearlessly lesbian, and just fearlessly not white in this weirdly boxed up world. It's such a good book. It's a 5 out of 5-star book. I swear to God, it's so good. For all you queer South Asian, queer brown girls, queer Latinx girls, queer Jewish girls, here's a book for you, ladies. Like, it's so good. The author's not queer that I know of. She does a fantastic job of doing these 2 girls the justice that they deserve, and it is one of my favorite books already of this year. It is definitely going to be in my 2019 favorites, I can tell you that, and it's barely 2 months into the year. I hope y'all read it when it comes out. You know damn well I'm going to be buying the hard copy, and I think I might just buy 2 more to like just pawn off to my friends who need to read it but won't read it unless I thrust it in their face. Do this book the justice that it deserves. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.